Welcome everyone. I'm excited to kick off today's presentation with the topic of Deviant Tafsirs. On this first slide, you'll see the title Deviant Tafsirs, along with a brief overview. Over the next few slides, we'll explore what makes these interpretations different, why they matter, and how they influence understanding. So let's get started and dive into this fascinating subject. Let's take a closer look at this verse from the Quran, specifically verse 260. It recounts a moment when Ibrahim, peace be upon him, asked his Lord to show him how he gives life to the dead. Now, this request might seem straightforward, but it actually reveals a lot about Ibrahim's faith and curiosity. When Allah responds, he asks Ibrahim, "Do you not believe?" Which shows that Ibrahim already had faith, but he wanted reassurance. Ibrahim then says, "Yes, but I am asking you in order that my heart may be at rest." Here, there's an important nuance. Some interpret this as Ibrahim referring to a friend he called his heart, suggesting that his request was about easing his friend's worries. However, this interpretation was debated among scholars, especially the rationalists, who thought it might contradict the idea of prophethood. They believed that Ibrahim's request was not out of doubt, but rather a desire for inner peace and certainty. This brings us to a key point about the nature of faith and knowledge in Islam. Sometimes, even prophets seek reassurance from Allah, not because they lack faith, but to strengthen their conviction and tranquility. And when we consider the deviant tafsirs, like the Mu'tazilite perspective, they often interpret these stories differently, sometimes emphasizing human reasoning over divine simplicity. So, in essence, this verse highlights that asking Allah for reassurance is a natural part of faith, and it also reminds us to understand the context and interpretive debates that have existed throughout Islamic history. It connects to our overarching theme of understanding divine guidance and the importance of sincere seeking knowledge. Today, we see a quote from the Quran, specifically Surah Al-Waqiah, verse 22. It says, "Out of them come pearls and coral." This imagery is quite powerful because it highlights the idea that from certain individuals or groups, valuable and beautiful things can emerge. In this context, the reference points to the Prophet's grandsons, Al-Hassan and Al-Hussein. They are often seen as sources of spiritual richness and virtues, much like pearls and coral, which are precious and treasured. Now, connecting this to our broader theme, it's important to understand how different perspectives interpret these figures. When we talk about deviant tafsirs, particularly within the Shia or Shia community, we're referring to interpretations that diverge from the mainstream understanding. These deviant tafsirs might emphasize different aspects of history or theology concerning Al-Hassan and Al-Hussein, sometimes leading to contrasting views. So, recognizing these differences is crucial because it helps us appreciate the diversity within Islamic thought, but also emphasizes the importance of understanding the original context and the mainstream interpretations. This slide reminds us that from revered figures like the Prophet's grandsons, many valuable lessons and spiritual treasures can be drawn, whether through traditional or alternative interpretations. It's part of the ongoing dialogue about how we connect with these historical figures and what they symbolize in our faith journey. Let's take a closer look at the Qadiani sect and their unique interpretation of this verse. They appeared in India towards the end of the 19th century and made some very specific claims about the word Khatam in the verse from Surah Al-Ahzab. Most translations understand Khatam as seal, but they argued that it actually means ring. Now, why is that important? Well, they claimed that just as a ring adorns the finger and beautifies it, Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, was the beautification of prophethood itself. So, in their view, the verse indicates that Muhammad, PBUH, was the most superior of prophets, but not necessarily the last. They also pointed out that even if we accept seal as the correct translation, it doesn't mean the end of prophethood. They compared it to a seal on an envelope, something that secures or closes but doesn't limit what's inside. So, this interpretation was a way to suggest that prophethood could continue beyond Muhammad, PBUH. These ideas were part of their broader attempt to validate the claims of their founder, Ghulam Ahmad, to prophethood. It's important to recognize how these deviant tafsirs seek to reinterpret core Islamic teachings, often to support specific claims that diverge from mainstream Islamic belief.